Hello, everyone. I am with Barbatoze, also known as Sharif. Just one moment. Sharif Aydin, I think. Did I get it correctly? My apologies.
Actually fine. Yeah.
Yep. So, before any for the people who don't know you, you are a dentist, which I didn't know until recently, until I checked out your Instagram.
Yeah.
But
A
but
lot of people don't know that.
which I think is actually really really cool, to be honest.
Oh, thank you.
I knew about you from your comic book, um, Futale na Boca, or in English, Come By Tomorrow, which
Yeah.
I went to the live, like the launch of it with my cousin, and we said hi to you over there. It was really fun. So
Um,
that's how I'm aware of you, and you people can follow you on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and I think Facebook at Barbatoz.
yeah, exactly.
So uh I just have one striking question
Yeah,
before we
sure.
get. Why Japan? Because that seems to me like that's the coolest thing. A dentist based in Japan. Just seeing that, I was like, that is really cool.
I actually get asked that a lot, like by friends and by
Yeah.
family members. You know, there are so many reasons. One of them is that I visited Japan around 3 years ago,
Okay.
like on a trip with some friends, and I just loved it. I loved life in Tokyo. I wanted to spend more time here and get to experience more of it. Um, that's one of the reasons. I'm currently doing my PhD here,
Oh.
uh, yeah, in a university in Tokyo,
Okay.
and that's another reason why I'm here.
All right.
And yeah, I just wanted to experience more of Japan. It's
Oh,
a great country.
that's good. It's on my list to visit. Its culture is
You
just
should.
it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
it's crazy. So I guess that leads right into the topic of your current work. You're as a dentist, like you said, you're getting your PhD, but on your Instagram account, you are also publishing a few comic book strips, like in I think magazine Tokyo.
Uh,
It's
it's called
sorry.
Metropolis.
Yeah, Metropolis. Yes, it's the first I think
Yeah,
English Japanese magazine. So
exactly.
how'd you manage to land such a job? I would say, like, was it your social media and your art on that, or just was that like I don't
I
know.
actually another reason why I'm here is that I wanted to expand, in the comics field,
All right.
and I wanted to try and get published here. A friend recommended Metropolis to me. He mentioned it as like the best English magazine in Tokyo. So I checked it out, and they had like a comic strip page or like section. So I just contacted them and met with the guys behind it. I managed to get my comic strip there. So I'm doing like a comic called Gaijin Falafel.
Yep.
And Gaijin in Japanese means foreigner.
Oh.
Falafel,
Okay.
yeah, falafel is like falafel, طعمية.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's famous in Canada. Everybody loves it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like a play on words because falafel, like طعمية, is kind of also like a slang word for Egyptian,
Yeah.
you know. So that's why I chose the title for it.
Okay.
And I just try to tell like the funny stuff or interesting stuff that I experience here through it. And 4 strips have been published. Hopefully more to come.
I hope so too. I think they're pretty funny, especially the tall problems of a tall foreigner in Japan. That made me laugh out loud. I think it's
I'm good.
hilarious. Also the language one, I think it's really cool as well because it shows the life of somebody who moves to a whole new country, but also shows it from the perspective of an artist rather than.
Yeah, I was worried about that one. I was worried people wouldn't get the visual
Oh,
um, gag behind it, but I'm glad people got it and liked it. But yeah, that was pretty much my experience because Japan people don't really talk English much. Like it's very rare that you meet someone who speaks English fluently.
right.
So everything is in Japanese, and if you don't know Japanese, then you will be lost a bit.
Okay.
So that was my experience. I was learning before I went to Japan,
Alright.
and I continued learning Japanese while I'm here. So gradually, as my Japanese improved, my experience improved. You know,
Okay.
I yeah experienced life more here and get to know, understand the people, and have better connections.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's the struggle of always moving to a new country. It's just, but it helps being around the language. That's the best way to learn it, right? It's
Yeah, 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 exactly.
full
Because
immersion.
like I'm forced to learn it.
Oh
If you
yeah,
live in,
yeah.
you just you need it. It's essential.
It's like you gotta survive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So has learning Japanese at least in a way I would say helped you understand more of the literature in a way, or the art rather, because like being in art school, we look at Japanese art in its era, and it's there's always this big break between it because you don't understand the language, or you're not able to understand the full history just because there's you just don't understand what they wrote. As
Yeah, yeah.
you're learning that, are you finding so, like things that surprise you about Japan that you just didn't expect to be there, as an like just that capture your eye at least.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Like, I think if you're learning Japanese, then you also have to learn a bit of the culture and the history. Like, it's connected. The language and the culture are very connected. So as you learn, you get to understand the culture more, and also appreciate the art more. And as an artist, there's a lot of interesting sides to Japan. Like, um, for example, the comic format,
All right.
I think, in my opinion, is very well understood by everyone here. Like, not everyone is crazy about comics.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone understands it visually. You know what I mean?
Oh
So,
yeah.
for example, in the train stations, if they want to explain to the people that um, if something falls on the train tracks, if you drop something on the train tracks, don't go and get it. Get the attendant so he
All
will
right.
pick it up. If they want to explain something like that, then they would do it in a poster in a comic format, like with panels and words
Oh.
and everything.
All right.
So visually, everyone appreciates that, at least, to say the least. So it's, as a cartoonist, it's very cool to be here.
Yeah. That's I think it's cool as well. It's because I often find this is another thing. It's you do cartoons and comics, which is a medium that at least so far isn't fully accepted into like the fine arts, so like into that type of thing, which I think is quite annoying because I want to do my own comics as well. And I think
Mhm.
I've had a few teachers in
Yeah,
university at least that look down upon comics, and I find that to be weird because as always, like I grew up around like reading Mickey Mouse comics, like Megalik Mickey,
yeah,
for like that
uh,
pound, and it's I always think about it as it's like people call it like the working classes, like entertainment, and it's
yeah, yeah,
the way I view it, I think it's the perfect bridge between images and film, where you don't have to show everything, but you have to show a little bit just to
yeah,
give
yeah,
the
exactly.
person. So it's just one moment. So do you think that comics being part of that whole middle class, like the working class,
Mhm,
and being so easily accessible while being cheap and bridging the gap between moving pictures and just still images, is that why
mhm.
it's so big, at least in Japan? Because I know like the manga industry is huge. I have a few mangas myself.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like do you think that it just comics in general just being of the people that create them and what who they are for, that's why they're so easily accepted in Japan everywhere?
It's hard to speculate, but I think I think there are two sides of it. Like, for example, manga here is very popular,
Yep.
and it's common to see like people on the bus, like a 70-year-old guy just reading manga.
Oh really?
And yeah, it's
Oh, that's really
he's
cool. Actually, I didn't. I've never seen that.
me neither, me neither. I think it's actually very cool. And but there's also a disposable sense of it. Like, it's printed on cheap paper, and
Okay.
many people don't collect it. They just read it like newspaper and then throw it away.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay, okay. That's interesting.
uh, for example, like the magazines. Of course, there are like volumes and books and everything like that. But also, I think it's very appreciated. There are many museums for manga artists and even specific artists, like the Ghibli Museum.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and for example, I've been in. I can't forget that. I forgot the name of the station, but uh, it's where Osamu Tezuka lives, like the creator of Astro Boy.
Oh,
And yeah,
oh,
in that train station, they have like a coffin with a real-life model of Astro Boy,
oh, really?
like
Okay, that's really
yeah,
cool.
like horizontally placed with his chest opened. And it's really cool to see. They just put it because Osamu
Oh,
used to live here.
that's
So I think it's very appreciated. I don't think it's looked down upon,
all right.
in my opinion at least.
All right. In Japan or in the
In Japan,
mainstream?
I think in Japan,
All right.
as
That's
well as I've,
oh
mm,
yeah. The manga industry is huge. I've seen a couple of videos on I think Shonen Jump. That's the biggest manga.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
and like I've been a fan of manga and anime since high school. So it's like I used to watch One Piece in Arabic on like Spacetoon and all that, and then to go out on YouTube and as growing up like and to see how big that industry actually is mind blowing.
it's huge. And by the
But
way, One Piece, I think is like the top-rated anime here.
oh, it's like it's like it's been going on for like 700 issues, something like that. I find it crazy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but it's also like it deserves a huge amount of respect as well for somebody to dedicate their whole life for one series.
yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
But it's
And
like
like the stores, like Shonen Jump stores, where you can buy action figures and bags and stickers and merchandise and stuff like that. And yeah, stuff like that is very huge here.
I have to thank you for reminding me of Astro Boy. I haven't thought of Astro Boy in so long.
Yeah. Do you
Um
know what Astro Boy was called in Arabic when it
uh
aired when I was a kid?
no, what was it called?
He was called a really silly name,
What
Cookie Lag.
Kuki Lagib? That that translates to Kuki the weird. What is it? Kuki the weirdo? What?
Astonishing, maybe.
Maybe. Oh wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So okay, well, since comics are, do you find that at least there's a big stark difference between the appreciation of comics between from Canada, sorry, from Egypt to Japan? Because
Uh,
I mean, like I personally find that there's a huge difference in art appreciation in general like I
yeah.
think that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm abroad is to study art, you know,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
basically like try to create a future
mhm.
in a place that will allow me to do so. Um,
Yeah.
so like, what are your views about like the art scene in Egypt, at least the comic book scene in Egypt, because you released a comic book there.
Yeah. Well,
And I would like to,
uh,
yeah, I would really like to hear more about that, just because.
well, is art appreciated more in Japan than in Egypt? Yeah, definitely. Um, about the comic books in Egypt, it's no, I would say I wish it would be better. I wish it, I know it can be better, but it's not very appreciated currently. Um, that being said, there was a specific period right around 2011, around after the revolution. There has been like a boom in comic books, and people started creating more. And there was, I think, like a growing interest in comic books, and not just comic books, but also alternative art platforms or art mediums. But I think after that boom, it started going down
Yeah,
again. Unfortunately, like
it's
many projects stopped, including mine as well.
yeah,
Uh,
it's my cousin's husband. He used to run I think a publishing house for comics, and I don't. He's been struggling as well. It's been hard. Like I have a few friends as well that their parents own just not even comics, but libraries or
Yeah.
like shurut bookstores rather. And it's like all that stuff, and it's like even then, it's like it's a big struggle, and it's just like I
Mhm.
talked to my dad about it, and I think my dad told me like the Mickey Mouse comics now like are £7 or something like that, which is
I think now it's 10.
ten.
I think.
Oh wow, it's like I remember that
Yeah,
being £1, and
yeah.
and so
But
it's like it's even harder for people to get the comics that used to be cheap.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Also,
Oh,
like during that booming period of comics, two comic book stores opened in Cairo,
oh yeah.
and they unfortunately closed down as well.
Was one of them
Uh,
Kryptonite? Is that the one you're talking? Oh, the Kryptonite shut down.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. I when I left. Oh wow, things
yeah,
have changed. Things have
yeah,
really changed. Oh,
yeah. Well, the economy isn't,
oh yeah.
allowing much ventures like that.
Yeah, but well, like I guess that's why at least like the internet has been here to help. I've seen a few of my friends start
Mhm.
like making videos. That's why I'm also starting to this podcast, just
Yeah,
because it's there are way there are so many opportunities online rather than in person now that it's crazy. Do
hmm
you think that social media, or at least are you trying to use social media as a way to get your name out there now, since the at least like the idea of physical copies is much less. I would say is feasible the word. It's like it's much harder to do basically to get like
yeah.
a publishing house and all that. Do you think that social media has helped at least?
Like I think, like for me, I started on social media actually. Like I
Okay.
started with doing Barbatoze comics, like random funny comic strips,
Yeah.
like unsequential, and I still do. I think the digital platform is important. Personally, as a personal preference, I prefer print.
Yeah.
I enjoy print. I think it's much better. But time is changing. I think the digital side of things is also as important.
I
Um, hmm,
I agree with you actually it's because I think it's like I think prints have this weird quality to it. It's just having the thing in your hands rather than
yeah,
on a phone. It's just I think it's the matter of actually owning it. It's that's the good thing
yeah,
about it, and it's like but um in social media anybody can see your stuff for free, right? But if somebody gets a book of your stuff, it's usually they either bought it or somebody who bought it gave it to them, right? So it's
yeah.
the artist is being supported. But in other
Mhm.
ways, it's like people are starting to do commissions and such. And like as an
Mhm.
artist, have you thought about that? Because like as a young artist, like as a person who's trying to grow their portfolio, it's like that's a like I would say it's like a thing. It's like a tease for all artists to be like, oh, what if I just say like I'll do commissions for
Mhm.
other people? But then the fear is like, what if you get like work that you don't like, right? And that's the fear.
Yeah.
So like, do you think that social media like at least will help you in a way that, or at least would you like to do commissions using social media, or would you stay
Uh,
away from that and stay fully independent as an artist and be able to creatively do what you want?
I actually did a lot of stuff. Like I did commissions. I'm currently doing like a weekly comic strip for a Lebanese digital newspaper called Al Akhbar.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I've read a few of those as well. Those are pretty fun. I love the black hole one with the alien
oh
and
yeah,
the dishwasher. I thought that was hilarious.
I'm glad. But yeah, I've always been doing stuff. I've even done like commercial stuff, like for brands and stuff like
Oh
that.
really?
Hmm.
Like
Which
what
which
type?
I don't enjoy as much, to be
Oh,
honest.
why?
I think like if you're doing something for a brand, you're very limited in your humor. You
Yeah.
can't. My type of humor, my preference is a bit absurd humor.
Oh
Not
yeah.
everyone would get it, and that doesn't really work for brands.
Oh, of
Brands
course.
like a very mild humor that
Oh,
everyone can.
And it has
and
to be very clean, and
get
everybody needs to
clean
get
up
it.
and stuff like that. So I don't enjoy it as much. Uh, but I'm always open to trying new stuff and see what I actually want to do.
That's, that's
But yeah, the digital, like showing your work digitally, I think it's very, very important.
yeah.
Uh, like everyone is online. You see people on the street, everyone is on their phone. So their eyes are on the digital world.
That's
So
true.
if you want to get your work seen, then you need to present it in the world that they're looking at.
That
So yeah, I would say it's very important.
it is. It's very weird to think about it into as two different worlds, but that's exactly what it is. The digital world is its
I
whole.
think yeah, I think so. Like I see people here, even here on the train, and everyone is so very engulfed in their phone.
Oh yeah.
That they're not seeing the world. You can be standing right next to them. They're not seeing you. They're in the phone.
Oh, like I've had a few
So,
moments. Like on the bus, sometimes I'll because I don't use my internet, so it's on the bus. I'll be bored, and then I'll just keep checking the same apps over and over, and I'll keep getting the same message of no connection. It just that's part of it. It's like
so
being around technology so much. It's you're so used to that information coming in, whether it's like
yeah.
articles or art, and it's without it, everybody's like, what do we do? Uh,
So you're not using the internet, like you chose not to use it, right?
Yeah, no, it's I well, part of it is like it's a little bit expensive in Canada, and like in in North America at least, the way the internet plans work, it's actually quite expensive to get a few gigs of internet, so I'm avoiding that. But it's helping me a lot because I try to draw people on the bus creepily. Yeah, as artists, everybody's like, don't move, I'll just draw you real quick. Um, I'll try to read or just listen to music, but otherwise, I think it's not being on the internet as much has allowed me to like observe
Hmm.
the world around me, and as artists, that's all we do is we just observe.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah, I agree.
it's like one of my favorite
Yeah,
things is like we just look into people and just like stare at them and be like, what is that person like? I imagine.
yeah, I completely relate to that. Like, I think I spent the first month here just observing people and, getting the sense of their facial features
Oh
and
yeah.
fashion style, to be able to draw them because it was very different than I'm used to in Egypt.
Oh, and yeah,
Um,
and you don't want to misrepresent certain things as well. So it's
exactly.
a weird. Um. So I'm just looking at the list here. Just
Sure. So, what about the comic scene in Canada? I think it's also big, right?
oh, that's another that it's in Canada. It's a bit weird actually because at least in the I know in the United States the comic book stores a lot of comic book stores are shutting down, and
Oh,
yeah, and it's a big problem because a lot of people are saying it's Marvel, the new age Marvel comics and all of that, and the
uh,
Image comics they're not as good, they're not up to
oh,
par as before, which I somewhat see. A lot of people are saying they're too politically swayed towards one one side,
mhm,
and it's pushing a lot of other people away. And it's I think part of it is a lot of people are catching on the 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 lack of creativity in it. At least I mean like since the comic book stores are shutting down, like there's this YouTube channel I follow. This guy he goes through Marvel comics that come out weekly and DC comics, and
all right.
like he's a comic book artist himself, so he will just like start going through and critiquing the panels, and a lot of them are just bland. Like I
Mm,
was talking to my girlfriend about your comics, and she asked me like, how are your panels different from
mm,
Western comics? And I was like, I think it's what the thing that caught my background is you set up like a world in the
mm,
background before you place the characters, but in Western comics at least, it's a lot of blank areas or like a big swoosh
mm,
type of
mm,
thing, and it's that paired with people trying to taking like ideas like Thor or
mm,
major characters and then like switching them.
mm,
At least like when we got the female Thor and all of that, switching them a lot. It's like you people get it in the first few times, yes, but it's like when you keep switching every character, trying to come up with a counter version, but not a fully original version, it starts to push people away because how is a female Iron Man like any different from a male Iron Man after like the first few issues of like
Yeah.
personal character development, right? So that, but I think the Comic Con, like the convention industry in Canada at least, is pretty huge. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Ottawa Comic Con, which I missed sadly, which I regret because have you read The Crow, the comic?
I only saw the movie.
Oh, I would recommend the comic. It's a great comic.
But
The artist was gonna show up, but I missed him. But his it took him 7 years to do the whole thing
oh wow.
because it's as dark as it is. It's inspired by him losing his girlfriend, I think,
Oh.
in a car accident or something, and he would work on it while working as a mechanic, which I
Mhm.
think is crazy. It's like how do you have the time to sit home
Yeah.
after a long day fixing cars in like ink and like crosshatch characters?
Yeah.
But it's the conventions, like people go there to just meet their favorite artists. But
Mhm.
even there, you get to see that shows and movies take over the comic book spot, and the comic book spot sadly takes like a back seat a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
It's
So, what do you think about the movies, like the current superhero movies?
I think I've been waiting for a movie to create a feeling of consequence for so long, and
Mm.
Avengers did it with like I've been calling for like a movie to kill off the bad guy, to kill off the good guys and let the bad guy win for
All
so
right.
long because it seemed so. And that's another thing with at least the comics is like the hero always wins at least DC and I think Vertigo comics go the
Uh,
darker route more and like
mhm.
experiment with like the horror of the human side, but it was really cool to see a Marvel movie like the lighthearted Tony Stark like actually take a more serious approach and a more like like a decisive approach towards who lives and who dies. But
Mhm.
I'm slowly losing my like the hype I've gathered for the next movie just because of all the trailers and like all the leaks that people keep seeing about who keeps like how all these Avengers will be revived and such. So I
Mhm.
think it's the movies are falling in the same traps the comics did as well, which is they can't kill off a character because it
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
too much money basically.
yeah.
So it's like, and especially like I mean another thing is like the movies aren't doing justice to comics because like they bring in like 4 or 5 different like completely different issues, and
Mhm.
at least I'm referring at least to the Batman versus Superman movie because that really pissed me off. I thought it was
It was
horrible.
one of the best things I've ever seen, to be honest.
It's like they because like the thing is they marketed the whole movie. It's like Batman versus Superman, and we have like the Dark Knight Returns, which is like a
Yeah,
great Frank Miller comic. I think
yeah.
is it Frank Miller?
Ah, yeah, Frank Miller, I think.
And it's like it's that one time in comic book where we got to see like Batman like legit fight Superman, and we got to
Uh-huh.
see those two powers collide, and we got to see like in a way who wins on top, and then the movie takes that puts it in all in 10 minutes, and we don't get the resolution that we should have gotten. We just get some like
Mm.
I'm gonna call it as the way I see it. It's like basically like it's like a cliffhanger to keep people
Mhm.
coming for the next movie,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like it didn't really work. But it's
Mm.
like I think it's um I don't know. It's like have you heard at all about diversity in comics? He's been this guy that has been shaking up the comic book industry for a while.
Uh,
He's
mm.
conservative, right? That's literally why he's been shaking up the news because of
All
him
right.
being on the conservative side.
Mhm.
But I think he's sparking up a new area of interest, which is crowdfunding for comics
Okay.
because his comic was supposed to be released in a few comic book stores, and then a few guys from Image Comics went after him and like convinced the comic book store to drop his comic basically because
Oh, wow.
they thought his views were too offensive and such.
Oh, okay.
So it's
As in too conservative.
yeah, like yeah, basically too conservative. They don't like it.
Okay.
Some of his views, like at least like he's not as open as others,
All
would
right.
like. But so what he decided to do was basically he used all the negative exposure he got to call the people out on what they're doing, which is
Oh,
there's a big problem with that is Mark Wade, I think, from Image
oh,
Comics or Marvel Comics, like went and talked to the comic book personally, like the
yeah,
comic
yeah.
books store personally. So it's to see an industry giant, a guy who runs a whole, I think it was comic, I'm not Image Comics, I'm not really sure, to run that whole thing, go after a small comic book
Mm,
guy.
mm,
It was huge and it led so many people away from comics, at least
mm.
from buying them from Marvel, Image, and DC.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that guy was like, I'm gonna crowdfund my own comic, and I'm gonna see if
Mm.
people are interested in that. And it's been working out great for him. So it's I
Oh,
think
wow.
it's comics are, in Canada at least, they're reaching, or in the West, I'm just gonna call it in the West in general, they're reaching a new form of production, which is
Mhm.
just basically crowdfunding.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically pay before you get the product at all, and just hope to God that the product is good.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Otherwise, it's like the the one thing is the comic book world is so connected to a lot of other mediums, right? So it's like you have Last of Us comics, right? Like comics based on games,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then you get comics based on card games and like certain movies and such. So it's really weird to see this industry like sort of try to survive
Mhm.
and while it but survive while having having its roots in almost everything. I mean, like if you look at the rap music, for example, so many comic book references just in that alone, that
Mhm.
it's like it is like it's for everybody, and to see it struggle like that,
Mhm.
it's quite it basically hurts, because it's one of the things I would like to do, and it's a medium that can reach everybody completely, no matter what age. You'll
Yeah,
get it, and it's just a little bit sad, yeah. And I think part of that is has to do with education as well, right? So people need to learn to appreciate the comics as well
mm.
as the paintings in the museums.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I completely agree.
So
Especially in the Middle East
oh,
and
definitely in the Middle
where,
East. It's like
yeah, like, I hope uh, art is more appreciated here.
it definitely is. Like art in Canada is appreciated,
Mhm.
and it hurts me so much because art in Egypt used to be so appreciated.
Yes.
And like I remember my dad would take me to a lot of like museums as a kid, and
Mhm.
it just like that, like Egypt used to have an artistic boom, and then I don't know what happened, but somehow the mentality of the country regressed rather than progressed in a way, and
Mm.
people started shutting off. As like, for example, I mean, like I got called gay so many times for drawing
Oh,
naked people in class or like in school, right? And it's like that's part of the mentality that discourages artists from drawing is
in fine
you,
art school.
huh?
In fine arts?
I'm in fine arts right now, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean in Egypt, in like high school or.
Yeah, oh, in high school, because my parents put me in an international school because
Oh,
I started throwing daily fits before
okay.
classes in the normal school, so I got basically the American teaching, like what they
Okay.
teach in America. I got the same thing,
All right.
but I managed to do IB art, which is international baccalaureate for the last 2 years of high school for just for art.
Okay.
And so it was basically a university course in high school, and it was our prof was, I want you to draw all the time.
All right.
And
All right.
and at that time she had shown me my grade. Like, are you familiar with the work of Egon Schiele, the artist
Mhm.
Egon Schiele?
Uh, I'm not familiar with.
No, well, he's I think he's a European artist, and his art style
Uh,
is comically in a way, but it's quite grotesque, and
oh, okay.
it has a lot of sexual themes.
All right.
But like that's why I love it, because it works so well in a in a comic-y way that shocks yet like gets the person to understand what's going on. So
yeah,
I would try to recreate his pieces, and I would just get called like, "Yo, hey man, are you gay? Why are you drawing a naked guy?" And I would be like, "Guys, like, first of all, you can't expect me to draw people with clothes when I can't draw people. Like that's the first thing
yeah,
I would tell them, right? It's like I need to learn. I need to start somewhere. So,
yeah, yeah.
but like just
I
that.
think art is very misunderstood in Egypt in a way. I think there's a lot of uh, just misunderstandings about what artists do, and you know,
Oh,
uh,
definitely.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's like I think it's like the way people view artists is they think it's a job for people who don't want to do things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so.
And I would say like judging from my experience, and I would say how long have you been drawing for? Like how long have you been actively drawing for?
I've been drawing since I was a kid, really, but I didn't try to take it professionally until around 2011, I think.
So around like 7 years.
Yeah,
But it's like people fail to realize in Egypt that it took you 7 years to get to the level where you are, and
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
and it's not basically, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna sit here and draw this face and it's like one drawing and it's done. It's like years and like thousands of sketches of just practicing because you got to get it right. And it's, I think it's just people
It
look
reminds
at,
me of a funny story. I was in Egypt. I work in the National Research Center.
okay,
Uh, so it's just dentists and researchers. So I was reading a book, and one of my friends there, he took the book and he looked at the price.
okay,
He thought it's very expensive, and then he told me, "Isn't that a bit expensive?" And then he was like weighing the book, you know, like
okay.
seriously, like holding like a bag of tomatoes or whatever. So he was weighing the book compared to the price. So I think maybe that's like the Egyptian mentality towards art.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Oh, it's like, but another thing, it's like one thing that makes me really happy. Are you really happy? Is like, are you familiar with the work of Kim Jong Ji?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
It's like I think he's a pioneer, at least in how expensive his stuff can really get, which I think
Yeah.
is a mark for at least him breaking through the mainstream, because he definitely did.
Mm.
Because I remember, I don't know if you're familiar with the artist in Egypt, Muhammad Wahda. I took a few
Oh
courses. I took a few
yeah.
courses by him my last summer in Egypt, and he
Uh-huh.
got. I think he took a few courses by Kim Jong Gi like online, and I think he went to
Wow.
Korea to get trained by him.
Okay.
And it's like I remember this distinctly because it's
Mm.
so crazy if that's true. It's like apparently he's one of the only few artists that actually gets a lot of his supplies for free from brands and
Oh,
such,
all right.
which I think is really cool, but also quite sad because if you look at it, a lot of famous people, or at least in their fields, get a lot of free stuff from other things, and it's just only a few people in art that do that.
Mhm.
But it's, I have a feeling that's always gonna be the struggle for art. It's never it's parts of it are
Mm.
gonna break through the mainstream, but then parts of it are just never gonna reach there, and that's all that's
Yeah.
existence
Yeah.
basically. I mean,
Actually, that's also like something I've been thinking about regarding comics in Egypt. Like I've been keeping a close eye on all the comic book ventures that has been made in the past, 5 years or 6 years, and the ones that the one that actually broke into mainstream, and like people who don't know comics, or people who are not necessarily interested in comics, even them, they got the book, was El Wara. Do you know it?
I've heard about it. I think my dad bought me one copy, but I can't remember it very well. Can you like I know for a fact
It's
it got big.
yeah, it got very big, and it was, I think, to my knowledge, was the only successful print for a comic book. Well, technically a comic book, and it's like very, very, very simplistic drawings. I think he started doing them on like a Samsung Note or something like that.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
oh no! I've seen those. I just thought those were like a random Facebook picture because I just saw El Wara on
yeah.
Facebook.
Like he
Like
started on Facebook.
okay, so no, sorry, I thought you were talking about another comic that when you mentioned
No,
it
no,
the
no,
first time.
that one.
No, it's like yeah, I even Muhammad Wahab himself like he posted his own version of that. I think it's actually really cool. It's like a
No,
small little. I think it's a really Egyptian way of doing things, to be honest.
yeah, but to me, like I think like the ideas in it are very, very basic. Like it's hard to, there's no depth to them. There's no uh,
Like
thought behind
okay,
them, and that was the one that broke through. Unfortunately, in my opinion, unfortunately.
oh
Uh,
you don't like that it broke? You wish that it was something else or
yeah, I don't think. Like, I think it tells about the how, like how do I say that? Like, for example, do you know the Sobki movies?
yeah?
They're very uh basic, and like there's
Oh,
no. Hmm,
there's like it's all like commercial made stuff for money making
exactly,
business wise.
exactly.
Like there's no I wouldn't say there's no like theme to it, but like there's I would say there's no what's the word? Like passion or like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I would say
There's.
I would say passion.
Hmm,
Like there's like nothing driving the idea of the movie other than just oh I gotta make money basically.
yeah, exactly. So I would, like in a perfect world, I would hope that people's taste would be a bit more refined.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
like yeah, I see what you mean. I think that I would also say it's like it might be very telling about the like, I think the mentality
Mhm.
and the situation of Egypt right now. It's like there is no thought. I don't like at least from what I hear, it's like Egypt. It's the things in Egypt are getting so bad that it's people don't know what to do now, right? So it's like people are just like they're stuck in between a rock and a hard place.
All right.
And I think usually, at least from my experience, like when we're stuck in a rock and a hard place, we try to forget about things, like we thoughtless stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
it would make sense for like something like that to take over. But
Mhm.
I see what you mean. It's like
But like a parallel to that would be after النكسة,
okay,
uh, أفلام المقاولات, like the really, like we can describe them as B movies. I think
okay,
uh, got really popular during that time as well. I think
okay.
that maybe is a good way to compare it
Oh
to.
yeah, that definitely perfectly actually. B it's like a it's a B roll comic B. Well, yeah, I really don't. I'm actually quite shocked by that, to be honest, because now that I think about it, you are so right. Like I thought it was so cool, but now that I think about it, oh wow, that's
Yeah.
oh well. Do you like what comic would you have liked to succeed at least? Like if there was a comic that in your mind, like one underground comic that you saw in Egypt that you were like, oh, if this was the one, this has to be it.
Hmm.
Other than yours, of
I,
course.
I think I would choose mine, but I think Tuk Tuk is maybe, of course you know it, right?
Yeah, I haven't read it recently because just
Yeah.
being in Canada,
Well,
but I've
hmm. I think like it's maybe the best way to introduce Egyptians to comics, because it has, a bunch of like great Egyptian cartoonists and different art styles and different stories. And I think it has this edge and it has this sarcasm that people love here. And I would think uh, I would have loved for this to be insanely popular all over
Oh,
Egypt.
I I like I would love comics everywhere. Just I wish Egypt had more street art too. That's one of the things. When
Yeah.
after the revolution with the comic book boom, there was a
Mhm.
huge street art movement. I remember that's partly led because of like during the protests, we everybody like painted the walls and stuff, and I think
Yeah.
that Egypt lacks a lot of that, and at least like, are there a lot of murals in Japan and like paintings on buildings and such?
Surprisingly, not so much.
Really?
Like there's a lot of art in Japan, but
Okay,
graffiti is not
it's not a
popular.
okay.
Uh, like I've seen a few, but you don't see them everywhere.
All right, but like,
Uh,
are there at least like sculptures on the
oh yeah,
street?
yeah,
Okay,
cultures, museums, even the building architecture is really,
so
you
it's like
know,
it's cool. It's like it has an artistic value to it. Is that what you mean?
yeah, like it's. I think it's a very artistic country. Like
Okay,
there's art in flower arrangement, for example. So people here, uh, like someone's hobby could be arranging flowers,
okay,
and people can go on the weekend to view flowers.
all right.
So that's a thing,
I
for example.
it's
So yeah,
like I I have a whole different love for Japanese cooking knives, which is I
cooking.
think
Oh
cooking
yeah, yeah,
knives
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I've been working in kitchens for a year to basically be able to afford my rent and everything for school.
Oh,
Um, but it's I through because I grew up. I have two passions: art and cooking, basically, because I grew up watching a lot of cooking shows. Because Ramadan and everybody's hungry and everybody just puts on like food TV or something just to let the time pass by. But watching at least Jap just Japanese chefs try to cook
mhm.
and the way they treat their food and everything, even their blades, like the blades out of everything, it's like the thing about them is if you treat them right, they can outlast you and like maybe your children if your children know how to treat them right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's
I
like
heard of.
so much care goes into everything that they do that I think it's really quite incredible.
Yeah,
And
yeah, indeed.
I think I would say part of that is just being surrounded by art and creativity leads to the people of that area being inherently creative and
Mhm,
artistic. Uh,
mhm.
but in Egypt, it's like we barely have any statues. A lot of really bad graffiti, like just like random words and scribbles.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately. But
It's
like, it's interesting that you're into cooking as well. So, like, what's your signature dish?
oh god, yo man, I've been only kitchens in 1 year. I barely know anything.
All right.
I would say like the one dish I know how to make. It's just being in Canada. I have to learn how to cook with wines, right?
Oh,
So but the good thing about wines is if when they're cooked right, it's like the alcohol is gone. So it's
all right.
not you're just taking the flavor of the grapes or the lemon or whatever you're using. But other than that, it's like so I know how to make a few good like white wine and red wine spaghetti sauces, but I think that's just like basic.
All right. But
But
no Egyptian dishes, for
oh
example.
no, there is. I taught myself. Here's the thing. I didn't know that lisan al-asfur was pasta until
I didn't know
recently.
that. Oh,
I
I
swear
did it.
it's until so the people who don't know what lisan al-asfur is, it's basically like we call it bird's tongue in Arabic.
Yeah.
So it's like this like smaller pasta, and I was in this place bulk barn, so we just buy a gumla, right? And I was like, all right, is this looks like it? I'm gonna try this. And then I took a bunch. I went home and I was like, all right, I did it wrong, of course. I didn't fry them before I boiled them. My mom taught me that. She was like, Tore, did you fry them? I'm like, no. She's like, you're gonna soak up all the water. And I'm like, you're right. But now my favorite thing is making that, and then right in front of my house, there's an African store that sells molokhaya out
Oh
of
wow.
all things. So I know how to make a mean molokhaya too. So it's like I tell my
That's
parents,
you know what's funny? Molokhaya is incredibly popular in Japan.
seriously?
Yeah, I was surprised as well.
Oh my, is koshari a thing there too?
Koshari, like there are a few, like maybe three places in Tokyo that sells koshari,
Okay,
and like authentic Arabic food, you know.
okay.
But molokhia, Japanese people love it apparently, and they don't know that it's Egyptian.
Okay, that's really cool. I actually did not. Oh
Yeah, and
wow.
they also uh, Japanized it a bit. Like
Oh,
they would soya sauce to it, stuff like that.
I have soy sauce at home. I'm gonna try that actually. I'll let you know how it's like. Maybe it's good. It's like I've been telling people here too. It's like my mom is over for a month visiting
All
me,
right,
so I've been asking her for like all the cooking tips for Egyptian food, right? So she taught me how to make fool the other day.
cool.
Like yeah, fool. It's like flava beans, and it's
Yeah,
I've been taking it to work too. It's like like I take some to work and stuff, and it's just I think it's really cool. I think that's not. I think part of cooking being a hobby is the sharing of experiences and cultures just through the
mhm.
dishes themselves. Because,
Yeah,
like, I mean, when Japan was closed off until Europeans like managed to get some trade in there, I think that's the history.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
like a major trade of cultures happened in art, spices, and food. That's like
mhm.
almost the three things that happens. And to me, it's
Yeah,
the fact that just food, anybody can agree on food basically. Like everybody can put
yeah,
on their differences aside and be like, this plate is delicious.
yeah. True.
So it's at least I find it to be the bridge
Uh-huh.
between a foreigner and the people of like the land is basically food and art, because everybody likes looking at beautiful things and everybody likes eating tasty things, and if you
Yeah,
can do both then you're set, right?
yeah.
But
My only problem with cooking is, for me personally,
mhm.
that I would spend like 40 to 50 minutes doing something
Yeah.
and just eat it in like 4 minutes.
Yeah, I know it's this the struggle. It's like that's
But
the
for me, like I don't know, like when I first came here, I thought, okay, I never cook in back in
okay.
Egypt. So I thought, okay, I'll just, learn it. I can do it.
Yeah.
So uh, I kept, getting recipes and trying and stuff, but the results are not so good.
No.
So after like a month and a half, I just, this is not for me.
I it's all about it's like all a few basics. That's literally I think it's what is it? You just need one good knife, a cutting board, and just like a book that tells you like stocks and basic things, and then you can go crazy after that. But it's like
Yeah,
it's I
I don't
think
know. I would probably just don't enjoy it, like the process of it.
oh I
Maybe problem. Maybe if I enjoyed it, then I
it
would get better.
it can be tedious, that's for sure. I at work I have to pick herbs
Yeah,
sometimes, and after a day of picking herbs, you don't want to touch the kitchen at all.
yeah,
When you get home, you're like, no, but it's I find it hard to cook too. I think my biggest problem, at least with cooking at home, because at a kitchen it's my job to like I can fucking like I can do whatever I want, and the other kitchen jobs that I had, it's like it's my job to like legitimately just like prepare the food for everybody. But when I go home, I just I'm so tired that
yeah.
I
You
don't.
don't.
But like, do you ever, as a since you're trying to get out your PhD in Japan, eh, do you find that being a struggle at least on your art? Does that take away from your art a little bit? I mean, because I found my cooking job to have taken away from my art a big
Uh,
time.
I think, like for me, I always manage to, do both. Like to manage my time and be able to do both. Um, so I'm not really struggling with that
No.
for now, at least. But
Those,
maybe like if I took up like a big project, like doing weekly and monthly comic strips is different than doing like a comic magazine.
That oh
So
yeah,
maybe in your case, maybe that would be difficult.
that's true. Um, so I'm actually a little bit curious about the whole dentist thing because
Oh.
it's such a weird. I know it's supposed to be like a podcast about art, but I'm just super interested. Are you a dentist first or a comic like a comic book artist first, or like what do you see yourself? Do you put one in front of the other, or like or are you just like, oh, I'm just an artist who fixes teeth, or
Um,
like what? How do you
I
view media?
like it's hard to say, but I think currently in this current state of mind that I'm in, I don't really identify myself with what I do. You
Okay,
know, like I'm a dentist, I'm a cartoonist. It doesn't really matter. You
okay,
know, uh, like it matters for identification. Like you're meeting a person, and okay, what do you do? Then I do blah blah blah. But I don't really try and think of myself. Am I a dentist? I'm just
okay,
I'm just a guy living a life, and that's it. Um, but that being said, I think I try to give both like equal amount of
okay.
attention and dedication. I try at least.
But so it's safe to say that you enjoy your dentistry. Like it's
Oh yeah, I do.
of course. Like you wouldn't
I
have stuck
do
with it
enjoy it.
so far.
Yeah, I do enjoy it, and specifically research.
Oh, okay. I can't handle. I can't even do research about university art like subjects. Are you kidding? Dentistry
But
research? How
there's
hard?
like different types of satisfaction that you get out of it,
Yeah.
out of
Oh,
science.
of course. And plus, like you know how to like a lot of people don't know how to clean their teeth, basically. But like you got an edge over that too. It's like I
Well, yeah, maybe.
don't. So okay, well, how long? Like, so you're doing your PhD in Japan. Do you plan on staying in Japan after for a bit, trying to test out like the waters in there, or do you have plans to go back to Egypt and try to do something there?
Um, I actually get asked that a lot as well,
Oh,
but
I get asked the same question too. That's why I'm asking it to you. It's a force of habit.
yeah, but like I think I'm not trying to decide how my future will be in I'm here for 3 more years,
Okay,
and so for me it's hard now to say in 3 years I will be doing so and so,
of
because
course.
life happens and different stuff happens, and you never know. You can have a plan and then it changes to a completely different thing. So what I'm trying to do is just enjoy the moment, just live a day-to-day life. uh, but uh, as for living in Japan or going back to Egypt, um, I think like the next years I would be able to judge if I want to live
Stay.
here or go back to Egypt, because Japan is pretty great. I'm enjoying my time here so much, but it's also not like paradise.
Of
There's a
course.
lot of downside. So it's hard to say now, but I would decide in the future, I think.
How long have you been in Japan so far? Like,
1 year,
okay,
close to one.
so 1 year. So what's your favorite food there so far? I there's a Japanese store around Ottawa that sells a lot of Japanese snacks. I haven't been there to it, but I tried matcha last
Oh yeah,
year because we had a Japanese an actual Japanese cuisine store open up in the middle of downtown Ottawa, and it closed down unfortunately. I
all right.
Which is quite sad because their cheesecakes were they had like Japan's cheesecakes. Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
god, they're delicious. So
yeah. Like
like
they
so far
have the best desserts, really.
it's like I just want to try everything I see on TV. It's crazy. It's like I've seen like have you seen the videos of those like meals that you get that you like have to mix and stuff and all that like Japan
Which
like
one?
it's like Japan has some really weird candy that's like I want to
All
try. But like so far being in Japan, like what's your favorite food about Japan?
right. Let's see. I think uh, I like udon too much. I eat it a lot. I enjoy it, and I like pretty much everything. I also like sushi a lot.
Oh, it's pretty
It's
sushi.
it's really good here.
Of
And
course, of course. Have you?
obviously,
Oh, I have to ask you. Have you been
uh,
to the fish markets there in Japan?
the market, yeah, I've been.
The fish markets?
Yeah,
Oh my
at
God.
one.
Okay, how is it, please? It's I have
It was impressive to see. Like,
actually I it's one of my dreams to go there. It's just
yeah,
there's also something about eating from the earth and the planet in itself, but like sustainably. Just it's another thing that captures my interest all the time. It's just the fact that and that's why a big part of me wants to visit Japan is like how interested like how like they're so interested in partly like saving their sea life, but like the way they cook with it and their food, it's just it's a completely new world. Like
well,
up until a
if
few
you
sorry,
if you're into comics and if you're into food, then you're gonna enjoy your time in Japan.
yeah.
I would say.
It's like up until recently, just like this is another thing I learned from my cooking. It's the way people cook tuna. It's like the tuna we get in Egypt in the cans. That's like apparently like way too overcooked and stuff. So it's like you're actually supposed to eat the tuna when it's like fully pink in the middle, like raw, and you just
Like
sear
on
it.
sushi and in sushimi, as example.
But it's
Yeah.
like oh my god, it's like the such appreciation for the flavor there too and the food and everything. It's crazy. Like I've seen a few videos about making some sort of Japanese pastas and such as well, and just the
Yeah.
dedication they
Mm.
put into that alone. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's like
Yeah. Food is good here. Like another thing I really enjoy is called daifuku,
dive.
which is
I don't know what that is.
it's I didn't know it before I came here, but it's like it's made of something called mochi, which is like rice cake. So it's
Okay.
like how do you say? Uh, well, like Melbourne kind of, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
like made out of rice.
Okay.
So it's like yeah, it's like jelly but a bit hard. And they use it to make different stuff, including sweet stuff and savory stuff.
Okay.
So daifuku is like this mochi, and it has some sugar powder over it, and inside it can be different stuff like ice cream, like sweet beans, like a fruit, like a strawberry, for example. It's
Hmm.
really good. It's maybe my favorite dessert in Japan.
I think I've seen a few videos of it on Instagram. Uh, I, I don't think anybody sells it here. I would like that sounds really cool. I have to add that to my list. It's like yeah, I just I have to say just like I really think it's really it's really cool that you're in Japan. As in I don't know why, but it fascinates me for some reason that out of all the people and I didn't expect you to be in Japan, but like I saw a dentist based in Tokyo and I was like what
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh my God, you're in such a historical place." Has it like at least being around the history of Japan like affected you at all, or has it changed the way you look at certain things? I mean, or at least the way they treat their history. Because I was talking to my girlfriend a couple times, and she tells me that um, it's like well, like I know that for a fact that each country teaches history a little bit differently to favor itself other than the others. Because like who doesn't, you know? But it's like
mhm.
has being in Japan around like all these historical sites, like has that made you realize anything or become aware of anything that you weren't aware of at all?
Uh, Not in particular, I think, but it's always interesting to learn about Japan's history. Like I took a Japanese literature and history course in the
Okay.
university. Um, so it's I think what's striking about Japan, like Japan's past and Japan's present as well, is that it's very, very different than the rest of the world.
Okay. How so? Like,
I think like they had like a very concentrated culture with minimal interaction with the rest of the world, and that's why it's like that's my theory, but
okay.
I of course you know, but I think they managed to keep their culture intact, like from
From
historical times. Of course, it evolved,
of
but
course.
it didn't at least not in the at least before the modern age. It didn't interact with the rest of the world as much as well the rest of the world. Um, so I think that's why it's very different. I think like my first time in Japan was 3 years ago, as I've told you, and I felt like I'm in a completely different planet. You know, like it's so alien, especially with the language barrier.
Oh,
It felt,
definitely.
yeah, like what is this?
It's like
It's very
I sometimes I have some trouble. Like I've been to a few restaurants where they've had like Japanese news stations online. It's even some of the letters I can't fathom how they pronounce it. It's like how do you
yeah.
make that sound? Like, but continue, please.
Um, well, I think that's also one of the reasons I wanted to stay here for a while. I think in before I came here, I was like I'm a very easily bored person and with minimal tolerance to repetition. So I think I reached the point in my life in Egypt where days became like a blur. You know,
Okay,
every the other one, and I keep doing the same stuff, and I just needed like a huge change, and also a challenge
okay.
to, just
To change.
to make me interested in life again. To to
Yeah,
say,
yeah. I understand. I understand what you mean.
yeah,
It's like just the day-to-day routines of just normal life c- take a toll on like whatever you want to
exactly,
do, which I think
yeah,
is another thing that a lot of people underestimate about artists is like for a long time you have to work on your art, but then work on something else to support yourself while you're getting your art to the level where it should be,
mhm,
and then that in itself can be tiring, right? It just
yeah,
requires change.
mhm,
And like I agree with you. Like I'm in the same spot. I need some change in my life. Like I'm looking for change. Hopefully, university. I start
yeah.
in 1 week, third year
Oh,
university.
congratulations.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I hope it's fun. I'm I really hope it's gonna be fun. 2 more years and then I graduate and then I hit the art world. Hopefully, as everybody says. But who knows?
So, do you have any plans for like projects, like for example, comic projects?
So far, not really. My only plan that I've stuck with is the podcast. And I don't even know if I'm gonna stick with that, to be honest, because it's like this is still the first one. But what I want to do is like I'm a gamer. I love games. It's one of my favorite pastime things to do. So I live 2 hours away from Ubisoft Montreal and like some of the biggest game developers. So
Yeah.
hopefully I really hope so. It's like in the next 2 or 3 years I can try to move out to Montreal and just hit their doors and be like, hire me now. Let me paint your games, please.
All right. So you want to like illustrate for games or like
Oh,
make concept
I
stuff
it's
like that.
that I also want to dabble in comics, but I want to make that like a side project for myself.
All right.
Um, I also have a few ideas of street art.
Okay.
That's a thing that piques my interest all the time. It's just graffiti and
Mhm.
the culture around it because graffiti is so deeply rooted in hip hop history. It's
Mhm.
ridiculous, but I mean, like all you have to do is look at the pictures of like I think 1970s of the trains in New York, and you get to see how big graffiti was back then. Like all the trains,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
inside and outside. Like I had a prof because I took a hip hop class
All right.
in university, which I did out of all the things I never expected to take. It was hip hop. I
All right.
went for that one.
How was
Um,
it?
it was fun. I failed that class, but that was more to like personal, like more personal, like and like mental health problems rather than like the actual class.
All right.
But I still like learned a lot of it and I appreciate it. But it's like there is this picture I remember of the inside of an NYC bus, and
Okay.
like technically the walls of sorry, not a bus, it's the subway. Technically the
Hmm.
walls of the subway are supposed to be white, right?
All right.
No. It's literally the walls, like even windows from ceiling to the floor covered in like full on graffiti. And it was
Oh
like
wow.
it's crazy, and it was at a time where graffiti wasn't what we know it as, like murals and like really cool looking words. It was like basically like a word and a few numbers, and that's like it's basically like Egyptian level graffiti with like just words and stuff.
All right.
But it's like slowly like it evolved into such a big medium that I want to try to take that and put it at least in Egypt, and I just want to make some murals in Egypt. I think
Mm.
Egypt needs so many murals. It's ridiculous. Because like
Like we invented them,
sorry.
right? Like I think Egyptians invented them.
Oh yeah. Oh we.
Like almost did.
That's so true. That's another thing. It makes me so sad. I was talking to my mom. It's like Egyptians, we built the pyramids, but then ah, but like it's like I hope so. I hope in the future like people like look on art in a new light in Egypt and
Yeah.
appreciate it because
Oh,
they need to. That's I don't think it's a matter of choice anymore. I think it's like a matter of survival as well. And it's
yeah, I agree because I think you know, yeah. How do I say that? I think it's very important to the mentality of Egyptians as just humans. You know.
I agree with you on I agree with you 100%. And I think it's far more important to Egyptians like than other people because of our history. I mean,
Mhm.
as a country, we literally have the last standing wonder of the seven wonders of the all seven wonders of the world. They're still up, and to look on our country now, and it's just we need art so bad. We need some sort of creativity in that country.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's gonna die. Because at least that's the way I look at it. I think it's the moment an art disappears from a country, it like fully starts to die because then there is nothing that can take away or distract the people or make them think about
Yeah, yeah,
in their free time. I mean, like the
yeah.
French Revolution was aided by art. A lot of revolutions and like wars
Mm.
and like a lot of the political stuff are aided by art, right? So it's as much as like people don't think it's important, it's far more important than they think.
Mm.
And it's just, I think Egypt needs like I think what happens to Egypt, I think it's gonna happen within our lifetimes,
Mhm.
but like I think it's gonna be like in the middle of my lifetime where all the people that moved out of Egypt, like me and like the students and just like people like you who are trying to just change up their life a little bit and get just try something new.
Mhm.
I have a feeling like we're either gonna end up going back to Egypt and trying to change it, and that's part of my dreams because I want to go back to Egypt and just like make
Mhm.
like at least because I live around Haram, right?
Mhm.
Mariotea and all that area, and it's like
Right.
such a poor area. But I remember like during the revolution, we went out and we started painting
Mhm.
the fences and stuff, and it was such like a
Yeah,
time that where everybody came together, right? And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it needs to happen again,
Uh,
especially now or like at least in the near future. Otherwise, it's gonna get too much for Egyptians.
yeah, I definitely think Egyptians, like aside from politics at all, I think Egyptians need to change their mentality.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like well, like what about the mentality they need to change? Like what do you think at least? As since you've been far away from home for a year and you've been able to observe it with like I would say like fresh new eyes.
Uh, let me tell you. Actually, I just came back to Egypt.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
During,
yeah. You told me.
yeah. So during that visit, I got to see Egypt a little bit from a different perspective because
Okay,
it has been like 8 months since I came before.
okay.
Uh, I think there's a lot of, how do I say, uh, hmm, let me try to phrase that. I think Egyptians need to have more respect to the world and to each other. I think that there's a lot of, like, people give each other a lot of shit. You know
Uh
what I
huh.
mean?
Oh yeah.
Like there's always people looking at each other and comparing their lives and you know messing with each other. I think compared to Japan, where there's harmony between people and people are very respectful to each other. People like there, there's this layer of protocol between people that they can't break. Everyone has to be nice to each other. Everyone has to smile, even if they feel differently on the inside. They
Okay.
still have to, be very respectful. I think we need something like that in Egypt. I think we need to be more respectful to the environment and to the city or like country we're living in. Like uh, a small example would be throwing stuff in the like garbage in the street.
Oh yeah.
Like that should be a no-brainer. You know?
Yeah. That is so true. Oh, like that's one of the things that you notice when you leave Egypt is that the streets are clean, and when you go to
Yeah,
Egypt, it's like, oh my god.
yeah. It's mind blowing. How can people live with heaps of garbage? And
Oh yeah.
why? How in the world would that
It's like
happen?
it's like yeah. It's like in Egypt, you can like somebody can leave a garbage outside for weeks, and nobody would touch it. Like somebody like and a guy next door is like sitting in the smell. He doesn't care, and it's like
Yeah,
and here it's like one day and like everybody's like, all right, take it out. It smells, man. Take it out
yeah,
now. And it's just
yeah.
I think it's also I think part of it is the way people look at like the work, because I mean like in Egypt like they look down on artists, but they also look down on craftsmanship, right? Like welders, carpenters, any people like
Yeah,
work with hands, like farmers and all of that. But here
yeah.
in the States, like sorry, in Canada,
Mm.
like a construction worker like start like flat like their flat rate is much higher than a minimum wage job.
Mm,
It's
mm,
crazy. It's like $25 an hour, $50 an hour, and minimum wage at least in Ottawa right now is $14
mm.
an hour. So there's this weird difference that
Yeah, that's what we meant by people giving each other shit. You
okay
know, like
for the
like
jobs you mean?
for everything.
Okay,
There's a lot of you know looking down upon people and trying to show off, and just people not being themselves.
yeah,
I
it's
think, my opinion.
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's part of it is we grew up comparing ourselves to each other and like to other people all the time that I think Egyptians like don't know what to do except to compare each other to each other. It's like, oh, I need to look better than this person instead of the
I was thinking like I also spent a couple of days in the North Coast, and
okay,
so it made me think about how like first they make a resort,
okay,
like Marina or Hacienda, and then a couple of years later they make a new one,
uh-huh.
and people feel so inclined to spend the huge amount of money to buy in the new one, just so that they can feel better and think that they're better because they're in the new one,
Oh
and
yeah,
they can look down upon the older resorts, and then a couple of years later a newer one comes along. It Yeah,
it's like, do you remember? Like, I don't know if you saw last summer, like, get fit for Maresi, get
yeah,
get cool for Maresi. Like, I used to hate those ads. Oh my god! But it's like it also told like it
people
showed,
actually buy them. People
huh?
actually, yeah,
It's like
people love this.
I know they did, but it's like it showed me a weird side of Egypt, like advertisement wise, like this
Yeah,
weird sense of like escapism in Egypt, where like everybody just wants to go to an area where they feel like cool, where they feel fit, where they don't have to worry. And out of all places, you get to see that in an ad for a resort that
yeah,
half the people don't even aren't even allowed to enter. Which I was like, oh my god, like this is really weird. Just like to go pass by, get fit for Mercy, like that sentence in itself was
it's
like,
yeah, it's actually quite sad if you think about it.
it's,
Like it's it's quite sad from a philosophical point of view. Like
oh
yeah, it's really sad. Like if you build your whole life upon this mentality and comparing yourself and trying to outclass others, then you're not really living.
no, oh, words of wisdom, sir. Words of wisdom. I agree. I agree with like that's true. It's like I have some troubles like comparing myself to others, and it's like when you compare yourself to others, like I always feel worse than I did before, and it's just like it's not worth it to go down that road because then I mean like my mom used to say sometimes like if you're good at something, there's always gonna be somebody who's like better than you, but it also means that if somebody's good at something, you have the chance to be better than them at it. So it's like it doesn't really matter because no matter what happens, somebody in the future is gonna surpass you regardless. And
Exactly.
the way I look at it is like I think people need to treat it to treat it as a family and as a
Mhm.
team rather than in the sense of individuality is important, of course. Like we got to treat the
Mhm.
individual, but it's like we gotta look. I think Egypt needs like people need to start helping each other more in a
Yeah.
way that resembles family rather than anything else because it's crazy. It's like everybody's so scattered, and when you're scattered, you don't know what to do, and it's just you need people around you just to help you. And I
Yeah,
think
I
like,
agree.
but like I think like it's like these ads like that have I think ads like that drove more of a wedge between people than they actually combined them because the people who could afford to go there like actually went there, right?
Mhm.
And the people that didn't like stayed back and stayed resentful towards all the people that went there.
Yeah.
But it's like do you see at least in your head like what type of solution do you think like do you see for Egypt other than people like treating each other like family or the what would you like to see happen to our country?
Um, it's really hard to say, but I think uh, I think maybe the source of this problem is um, the huge difference in social class and wealth uh, between classes in Egypt. I think maybe that's the number one source of the problem. Um, how it can be solved, I don't know.
Oh,
but 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 at least people should treat each other with respect, and I think like to put it flatly, I think Egyptians need to mind their own business,
oh, that is so true.
yeah, on a
Oh,
human interaction level. I would
that is so true. That is ridiculously true. Like that has never been truer than this point. And my mom's been over for a couple of days, so. But it's like I think that is so true. It's like I I, I keep talking to my dad because I want to do some political art because in your Egyptian politics run through your blood whether you like it or not. But it's like
yeah.
even then I keep thinking about just the way Egyptians and at least the Middle East and all of it like reacts to certain political things, and it scares me. It legitimately scares me because we are known for like responding sometimes with too much anger towards like
Mm.
certain things, and it's like should I try to poke the bear or am I gonna get my head ripped off if I
Yeah.
like and that's a
Probably during this era, maybe leave the bear alone.
oh
Probably.
yeah, I'm not touching the bear. I thought about touching the bear, then my mom was like, "Are you crazy?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, I apologize." It's like, oh, Oh, I have to ask. It's like my girlfriend keeps telling me that it's really hard to get into Japan. Like visa wise, it's like they're like on point with their papers, and like you have to have a clean record and everything. Is that true?
Of course, you have to have a clean record,
Okay.
but I don't think it's hard.
Okay.
Like I think, for example, there's a lot of Americans and Canadians and even Europeans here who
Oh.
come. Yeah, not a lot, of course. Like
Okay.
the foreigner percentage is still very very low compared to other countries. But what they do is usually get like a work visa,
Okay.
and they start working as an English teacher,
Okay.
and then they settle down and look for other work options.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's hard, from what I've heard at least.
Okay. That's good. Well, thank you. I'll like I'm trying to think of when can I go to Japan? Like how soon can
Definitely, you should visit.
it's I think it's such a beautiful country. It's like even the
Yeah,
food. It's like just I want to try this. I think it's Wagyu beef or
Wagyu
some.
beef. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like I've seen videos of that on YouTube, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to try. I need to try the
yeah.
marbling. Like it's
Yeah, it's really,
crazy.
really.
Um, well, I think that's it for today. Actually, like we've covered most of the topics that I wanted to talk about. Well, okay, we're gonna close it off with if you have any tips for at least like artists, like young artists, especially in Egypt, that are like thinking of like should I pursue this? Should like maybe not as a full-time job, but like should I think of art as like a viable road to go down to? Like what would you say to those people?
But first, let me ask: do you mean art in general, or specifically comics?
Both. Let's go with that.
All right. Well, um, it would. I think it would be two different answers. But like, for example, comics. Currently, it's not a very promising in Egypt, at least. It's not a
Okay.
very promising career choice to say if you're solely depending on it. Uh, that being said, I think if someone wants to do comics, then they can't not do it. You
Okay.
know, like for me, I don't think I can stop making comics. It's
Okay.
just that
It's
it's
just
my way of communicating myself to the world, and uh, from the people I've seen and the people I know in the cartoonists in Egypt, uh, I think most of them feel the same way. Like they feel the drive to create comics. So if you want to make comics, then please make comics, because there's always room, and there's always like new blood is welcome to push the industry forwards, hopefully. Uh, but maybe also get your work in check. Like don't depend on it. Also make it like a side career or like a side gig or whatever you want to call it.
all right.
Um, hmm. uh, and as for art, I think depends on what kind of art. I think there's many artistic jobs available in Egypt. Uh, Many of them are related to advertisement.
Okay.
Uh, so I think if you're an artist, you can always like you can depend on it. You can depend on it.